We go live to the UN headquarters now in New York as the General Assembly continues. Let's listen to the statements of the Foreign Minister of Algeria.
We are once again meeting at the United Nations, and our world is at a critical, sensitive, and dangerous juncture. A juncture characterized by the accumulation of conflicts, crises, wars, and a widening gap of development disparities between the North and the South, as well as worsening climate change and environmental risks of all kinds. A juncture that reveals the magnitude of the shortcomings that have afflicted the collective security system in light of the tendency to resolve differences by force and the excessive and selective use of unilateral punitive measures. The failure to fulfill the commitments undertaken and the disregard for international legitimacy, as well as the increasing polarization and accompanying absence of the role of the Security Council, and the erosion of multilateral international action as a whole. Last but not least, it is a juncture that puts at stake the entire system of international relations, with the rules, principles, and controls that has been codified in the Charter of the United Nations, and the mechanisms, structures, and institutions that it is based on that have been put in place to serve the aspirations and purposes and ambitions that bind our countries. From this perspective, looking ahead to the 8th decade of the United Nations organization must be an opportunity to renew our commitment to the system that brings us together, that is based on the rule of law, not the rule of force, that is based on the power of the law, not the law of power, that is based on the power of reason, not the logic of power. We are in a dire need today to restore our commitment to and respect for the United Nations Charter and the rules of international law, before which we are all equal. We all have a duty to respect and abide by those rules. The ongoing genocide in Gaza that has continued for almost 1 year, and the recent spillover of this war into the West Bank and Lebanon, and the sharp, multifaceted, multi-front Israeli escalation in the entire region, all of which could not have happened if the international community at the time had taken a firm stand that forces the Israeli settlement occupation, what has been imposed on others, namely punitive and deterrent measures, as set forth in the Charter of the United Nations under Chapter 7. The international community today should hasten to put an end to the inferno against the Palestinian and Lebanese peoples, and to rein in the Israeli occupier and its desire to engulf the Middle East region into a state of crisis, conflict, and endless war. The international community should also realize that it is facing a decisive phase in the history of the Palestinian question, a phase that does not accept a return to the status quo ante, a phase that does not accept hesitation or inaction in supporting the national Palestinian project, a phase that does not allow for procrastination in supporting the move towards the establishment of an independent and sovereign Palestinian state as a just, lasting, and final solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
من هذا المنبر
From this podium, at its previous session, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdulmajid Tebboune, appealed to our United Nations organization to expedite the admission of the full membership of the State of Palestine. This has been done in a less volatile, tense, and tragic circumstance in the occupied Palestinian territory and throughout the neighboring region of Palestine. Today, the question of Palestine is at its darkest historical chapter ever. This approach is inevitable and urgent and self-evident. The full membership of the State of Palestine in this organization remains a crucial step towards the preservation of the two-state solution, towards addressing what the Israeli occupation is gearing up to thwart, a step towards safeguarding the tenets of resolving the Arab-Israeli conflict and the pillars of security and stability in the region. With regard to developments in our regional neighborhood, Algeria's conviction remains firm that in order to address the diverse challenges facing the states and peoples of the region require an international support and global commitment to address the different challenges that weigh heavily on our Pan-African space. This is fully the case for the Sahel region. Apologies, the interpreter notes. In this same vein, we look forward to ending colonization by turning the last page of colonization, which we see on the territory of the Western Sahara. We provide all support for the Secretary General and his personal envoy in their efforts to enable the two parties, the Kingdom of Morocco and the Polisario Front, to resume the path of direct negotiation to reach a political solution that would guarantee for the Sahrawi people the exercise of its inalienable right of self-determination that is not subject to the statute of limitation. And as for those that seek to entrench the status quo of colonization by falsifying the clear facts and through desperate maneuvers to distract attention from what is clear, we would like to reaffirm that colonization must end no matter how long the time passes, and that legitimate rights of the Sahrawi people will be implemented sooner or later. As for Libya, Algeria calls for the expeditious addressing of the scourge of foreign interference, which is sowing discord in that brotherly country and fueling clashes and conflicts among its people. Only then can our Libyan brothers come together on a consensus that begins to achieve the goals of national reconciliation and fosters a trend towards the organization of fair and free and transparent elections. All of this in the service of the high purpose that we desire from the bottom of our hearts, which is the unification of Libya, its people, its territory, its government, and its institutions.
وعلى الصعيد القاري
At the continental level, Algeria is continuing its efforts and endeavors to make a qualitative contribution to the African overarching action in light of the priorities firmly set by the continental agenda. Africa, first and foremost, looks forward to the activation of African-led solutions, as well as development and implementation to put an end to conflicts and to address the different crises and conflicts that the different peoples and countries of the continent are afflicted by. Further, Africa looks forward to addressing economic development and join the revolutions in artificial intelligence, digitization, and renewable energy. Third, Africa is looking forward to advancing its strategic priorities, which are at the heart of the reform of international financial, monetary, and banking institutions, to improve African representation at these institutions, as well as the structural reform of global indebtedness, as well as international financing that is appropriate to the requirements of development at the continental level. 4. And finally, Africa looks forward to correcting the historic injustice imposed on it at the Security Council and enabling it to occupy its rightful place at this central body of the United Nations, as it has recently joined the G20 as a permanent member. With the same commitment at the continental level, Algeria continues its endeavors to establish a balanced, beneficial, and meaningful partnership in the Sahel region, which is currently undergoing a fragile situation as countries in that region are suffering from an escalation of political unrest and an increase in the threat of terrorism and the absence of sustainable development, as well as the spread of the phenomenon of climate change. Algeria, in the face of all this, reiterates its solidarity with the peoples and countries of the Sahel region. We stress our firm belief that our security and stability and prosperity is part of that of the security, prosperity, and stability of its neighboring African region.
لقد تفوه ممثل دولة.
A representative of a country from this region and from this space have, in brazen language, attacked my country with base language that should not be dignified with a reply. A reply of this level should not be becoming of this noble podium. This base language, impolite language, will not be met by my country except by a polite language, one that truly reflects our loyalty and sincerity to the deep-rooted, unwavering bonds and deep-seated desires and links in the region, which cannot be shaken by transit circumstances and the triviality of those who are behind it.
بلدي إرادة صلبة.
My country has a firm and long-standing will, and our hands are extended to our brothers as we seek to build with our brothers a Sahel edifice that enjoys security and prosperity. Algeria today is taking firm steps on the clear path set forth by our President Abdelmajid Tebboune to enhance political stability and institutions and to build a strong and diverse economy that would end our dependence on the oil sector and to promote the social character of our state and as a solid legacy of our noble revolution of liberation. This approach has yielded its first results in the consolidation of the country's security and stability and consolidation of its democratic course, particularly during the recent presidential elections, as well as by laying the foundations for a comprehensive economic renaissance, which has restored our national economy's position at the African level among the powerful economies on the continent and has opened up opportunities for profitable cooperation and partnership for all parties. In light of these achievements, Algeria is endeavoring to strengthen its relations with all brotherly, friendly, and partner states in and outside these areas of affiliation. My country also seeks to continue to work closely with all member states of our United Nations, which share our same commitment and concern to uphold the principles and values enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. Although the current situation in our world is difficult and dangerous, which breaks the strongest of wills and erodes the most solid of determination, we are very confident that hope will survive and that ambition will remain available. From the womb of crises, opportunities are born, and from the depths of suffering, wills are sharpened, and from the heart of hardship, hope is born. We hope from the bottom of our hearts that we will have a better world for present and future generations. I thank you, Mr. President.